Hello and welcome back to the Rocha Rising podcast. Today's topic and the title of today's episode may surprise you because we're going to be talking about books, but not in the usual way. And today's episode is more just about us questioning what we are doing and how we, I guess, approach books and approach reading. Um, there's nothing more for you to do except to listen and analyze and think, not to cast judgment on yourself, but to just become aware of how you are approaching books and approaching uh, reading. So, the title of today's episode is Are Books the New Fast Fashion? So, before we um, discuss more about, you know, what books are, we sort of need to understand what fast fashion is for us to really understand the question that I've proposed. And so let's quickly look at what fast fashion is and what this idea encompasses. So, fast fashion is the idea that clothes are made quickly, that clothes are sold cheaply, and that people are encouraged to buy more and more. It's the idea that clothing trends change every few weeks. They change quickly, and clothes are therefore only worn once or very few times and then put into your wardrobe to be forgotten about. It's all about speed, novelty, and constant consumption. So what does this have to do with books? Why am I asking if books are becoming the new fast fashion? Well, if you've ever been on TikTok, you might have heard of Book Talk. What's Book Talk? Well, BookTok is a subsection of TikTok where there's a huge online community of influencers and readers that share their recommendational books, share reviews, and they talk about books, which sounds great and in many ways is. It's encouraging more people to read, which is something that I will always say is a positive thing. But something interesting has been happening. Many book talk creators are posting huge hauls of books that they've purchased, or they're posting videos of them unstacking loads of books that they have, or showing rooms filled with hundreds of books that they've potentially read. I'm not going to say that they have or haven't. And these amazing libraries that they have of all these different books. And it got me to start thinking. It raised the question of whether we are treating books like fast fashion. Are we buying them quickly? Are we consuming them quickly? And then are we moving on quickly? Are we moving on too quickly? Has reading become a symbol of status rather than something that we do for enjoyment? And so this sort of brings us to the heart of today's episode. And that is the question of whether we there's been there's been a movement for us to start reading as an act that we are performing for others rather than something that we do for pleasure, for knowledge, and for enjoyment. Historically, in schools, yes, reading has been something that people have done simply for their teachers telling them they need to read an X amount of books or they need to read a book on certain topics. But as you grow, usually an interest and a love for books develop. But is this now changing? Is the growth of social media influencing how we perform, how we, not let's say perform, but how we read, how we enjoy a topic? Are we now just tearing through books without truly appreciating the the story, appreciating the literature? Recently, I listened to someone talking about the pressure that they felt to read a lot. This person is studying literature, and she mentioned that she felt embarrassed to tell her classmates that she only reads one book a month for fun, for enjoyment, and that she feels guilty for reading slowly. She mentioned that the books that she chooses to read are books with complex language or um, or deeper deep ideas that often take longer to read, which is completely normal as reading's not a race. She also mentioned that a lot of the books that are um, out in the world today are sometimes books that are using very simple vocabulary, which makes it easier for someone to tear through uh, 50 to 100 books a year without really stretching their vocabulary skills. And another point that she touched on was the idea that authors don't have to hire editors anymore or go through publishing houses to release their books. You can write a book and publish it to Amazon, for example, to be purchased. And why have I mentioned her and what her thoughts are? Well, it's because I find it truly interesting that she has is feeling and has felt this pressure to read more, and that it's there there seems to be a change in how we are approaching reading and approaching the enjoyment of books. So I'm not going to give you answers on how you should be reading, how many books you should read a week, a month, a day, what types of books you should read. But what I am going to do is answer you a few questions so that you can reflect um, on yourself and think about how you can be more intentional in in selecting books that you're reading, in being present in what you are doing and not simply following trends like has happened with fashion, where we simply buy an item, wear it a couple of times, and then get rid of it or never think about it again. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I just want you to think about these questions and think of, and to not judge what your answers are, but to simply think of what possible changes you could make to ensure that you're being intentional with your everyday actions. So, first question is, if you're currently reading books, how many are you reading? And are these books actually helping you to grow, to evolve? Are you enjoying these books? Would you return to these books in 5 or 10 years? Does it matter to you if the books that you are reading are simple books or books that are challenging you? And why, if it does matter or if it doesn't matter? Why is this the case for you? And the final question that I want to ask is, do you think your reading habits and the reading habits of uh, the world in general, should I say, the population in general, is turning into something of a competition, something to prove? Or do you think reading is still something that is done because you enjoy reading? These questions, they're worth thinking about. Spend a minute or two digesting these questions, answering these questions, and if you feel open to it, share your answers in the comments. I I would love to know your thoughts. To me, reading is about enjoyment. It's about being transported in a story, but it's also about growth. And not every book has to be a book that challenges, nor does every book have to be a book that is transfers you to a world of, I don't know, a mystical world. But I do believe that we should have a range of books that we are uh, enjoying and digesting. Thank you for listening to this podcast where I simply say, talk about what's on my mind. And what was on my mind today was the idea of books becoming the new fast fashion. So, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep reading, however you choose to do it. Bye.